Girl sees millionaire with baby about to be attacked by snakes. Then she does something incredible. Let me know what you thought of this story by giving it a rating from 0 to 10 and tell me what city you're watching from. I really want to know if you liked my story and get to know you better. So please subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. Chapter 1. The dust from State Route 89 rose in thick clouds as Chloe, only 4 years old, rummaged through the abandoned trash cans near the defunct gas station on the outskirts of Oak Creek. Her small, dirty hands searched desperately for any leftover food that could quell the hunger that had been consuming her for 2 days. The faded pink dress she wore, once belonging to a doll someone had discarded, was torn in several places and barely protected her from the morning chill. Her tangled brown hair fell over her large, expressive eyes, which carried a sadness far too deep for such a young child. Chloe had learned to be silent, invisible, ever since she lost Mrs. Gable, the only person who had looked after her for the past few months. The old scavenger had simply vanished one morning, leaving the girl completely alone in the world. The sound of an approaching engine made Chloe instinctively hide behind a rusty drum. A sleek black sedan stopped abruptly on the shoulder of the road, its tires skidding on the gravel. From the driver's window, she could see a well-dressed man in a dark suit who looked to be in a panic. Arthur Harrison, at 52, felt the world spin around him as he tried to control the dizziness that was overpowering him. His diabetes, normally well managed, had gone completely out of control during the urgent trip he was making from Bridgewater to Oak Creek. In the back seat, his 6-month-old granddaughter Isabel was crying incessantly inside the baby carrier he had hastily brought along. Arthur's trembling hands could barely grip the steering wheel. The mining sector businessman, owner of Harrison Mining, a family company he had built over 3 decades, felt his body weakening rapidly. The uncontrolled blood sugar was causing a severe crisis, and he knew he had only minutes before he lost consciousness completely. With great effort, he managed to get out of the car and remove Isabel's carrier from the back seat. The baby had a high fever, which was why he had made this desperate journey in search of a specific medication only available at the Oak Creek University Hospital. Victoria, his 28-year-old daughter and Isabel's mother, was in such a severe state of depression that she couldn't even accompany him. The midday heat intensified Arthur's discomfort. He moved a few yards away from the car, carrying the baby carrier, when his vision began to darken. His legs gave way, and he collapsed onto the arid ground by the roadside, unconscious, while Isabel continued to cry desperately. It was then that Chloe noticed something that made her freeze in terror. From the nearby brush, 2 rattlesnakes were slowly approaching the carrier where the baby was crying. The snakes, perhaps attracted by the cries or the movement, slithered silently across the dry earth toward the unprotected carrier. Without a second thought, Chloe bolted from her hiding place. Her bare feet flew over the gravel as she desperately looked for something to scare away the reptiles. She found some rocks and dry branches scattered on the ground and began to throw them in the direction of the snakes, shouting and banging the branches on the ground to make noise. "Get out of here! Get out of here!" the girl yelled in her high-pitched voice, throwing rock after rock. The rattlesnakes, startled by the movement and noise, finally moved away and disappeared back into the brush. Chloe continued to scream and throw rocks until she was sure the animals were completely gone. Only then did she approach the carrier, where Isabel was crying inconsolably. With the natural ease of someone who had cared for younger children during her life on the streets, Chloe started making funny faces and sounds to calm the baby. She hummed a song she had learned from Mrs. Gable, gently rocking the carrier. "It's okay, little baby. It's okay," she murmured in her sweet voice. "Chloe's here now. No one's going to hurt you." Arthur remained unconscious a few yards away, his breathing irregular and his pale face showing the seriousness of his condition. Chloe looked at the fallen man and then at the baby, instinctively understanding that they both needed help. The girl sat on the ground next to the carrier, continuing to soothe Isabel while waiting for someone to pass by on the road to call for help. The sun was getting stronger, and she knew she needed to protect the baby from the intense heat. Creatively, she used her own little dress to create shade over the carrier, leaving herself exposed to the scorching sun. Hours passed. Chloe never left their side for a moment, alternating between caring for Isabel and checking if the man was still breathing. Her stomach rumbled with hunger and her mouth was dry, but she did not abandon her post as an impromptu guardian. It was only in the late afternoon that Arthur slowly began to regain consciousness. His eyes opened with difficulty, and the first thing he saw was a small, dirty and tattered girl humming softly to his granddaughter, who was now sleeping peacefully in her carrier. Initial confusion gave way to astonishment as Arthur realized where he was and what had happened. Chloe, noticing he was awake, approached timidly. "Are you feeling better?" she asked in her tiny voice. The baby was crying a lot, but she's sleeping now. "Some snakes came, but I made them run away." Arthur tried to sit up, still dizzy, slowly processing the girl's words. Snakes. She had protected Isabel from snakes. And how long had he been unconscious with his granddaughter unprotected on the side of the road? The gratitude that filled his heart at that moment was something he had never felt before. This small, seemingly abandoned child had saved his precious granddaughter's life, asking for nothing in return, exposing herself to danger and discomfort. "What's your name, little one?" he managed to ask, his voice still weak. "Chloe," she replied simply, her big eyes staring at him with a mixture of curiosity and caution. At that moment, looking at this brave girl and his granddaughter sleeping peacefully thanks to her care, Arthur Harrison had no idea that his life was about to change forever. Chapter 2. With great effort, Arthur managed to get up, leaning on the car. His legs were still shaking, but the urgency of getting Isabel to the hospital overrode his weakness. He looked at Chloe, who remained by the carrier like a little sentinel, and made a decision that would change everything. "Chloe, can you come with us to the hospital? I need to take my granddaughter to see a doctor and, well, you look like you could use some care too." The girl hesitated, biting her lower lip. Her experience on the streets had taught her to distrust adults, but there was something in this man's voice that sounded genuine. Besides, she was worried about the baby she had cared for hours. "Is the baby going to be okay?" she asked, moving closer to the carrier where Isabel slept. "We'll hope so. The doctors will take good care of her," Arthur replied, impressed by the child's sincere concern. The drive to Oak Creek University Hospital was tense. Arthur drove with extra care, still feeling the effects of the diabetic crisis, while Chloe stayed in the back seat next to the carrier, whispering words of comfort to Isabel whenever the baby stirred. In the pediatric emergency room, the activity was intense. Dr. Mark Shepard, an experienced 45-year-old pediatrician, received Isabel's case with evident concern after examining the symptoms: persistent high fever, mild seizures, and an abnormal muscle stiffness. "Mr. Harrison, I need to be direct," the doctor said after the initial tests. "Your granddaughter is showing signs of possible meningoencephalitis. It's a serious neurological condition that requires immediate admission and intensive treatment." The world seemed to collapse on Arthur. He leaned against the hallway wall, feeling the dizziness take over again. Chloe, who had silently followed all the commotion, approached him. "What's meningo?" "That thing?" she asked with her childish pronunciation. "It's when the brain gets sick, little one," Arthur explained, his voice choked with emotion. "Isabel will need to stay in the hospital for a long time." In the following days, a strange routine was established. Arthur practically lived at the hospital, leaving only to get clothes and handle urgent company matters over the phone. Chloe, in turn, had become a constant presence in the pediatric ICU, where the nurses had affectionately nicknamed her the guardian angel. The head nurse, Claire Evans, 38, was impressed by the girl's dedication. "I've never seen anything like it," she commented to her colleagues. "This child has a natural instinct for caring for babies. Isabel is visibly calmer when Chloe is around." It was true. Whenever Chloe hummed her songs or simply placed her little hand on the crib, Isabel would stop crying and her vital signs would stabilize. The doctors began to notice the pattern, but couldn't explain the phenomenon scientifically. Meanwhile, Victoria Harrison finally arrived at the hospital 3 days after the admission. The 28-year-old was visibly worn out, with deep, dark circles under her eyes and wrinkled clothes. Her postpartum depression, worsened by her boyfriend's abandonment during the pregnancy, had intensified with the news of Isabel's illness. "Dad, who is this girl?" Victoria asked, upon seeing Chloe sitting next to her daughter's crib. "This is Chloe. She saved Isabel's life," Arthur explained, recounting the events on the road. Victoria observed the girl with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion. "Where are her parents? Why is she here alone?" The question echoed in the room, and Chloe looked down. "I don't have a mommy or daddy," she murmured. "Mrs. Gable disappeared, and now it's just me." The revelation caused an awkward silence. Arthur's heart ached as he realized there was an abandoned child right in front of him while he was despairing over his granddaughter's illness. "How have you been living?" Victoria asked, her voice softer. "I look for food in the trash, sleep where I can. Sometimes people give me a piece of bread or let me sleep by the church door," Chloe answered, with a naturalness that broke the adults' hearts. That same day, the hospital's social worker, Sarah Miller, was called to assess Chloe's situation. A 42-year-old woman with experience in complex cases, she immediately recognized the signs of a child in extreme vulnerability. "This girl needs urgent medical care," Sarah diagnosed after an initial conversation. "Signs of chronic malnutrition, possible vitamin deficiencies, and evident emotional trauma." It was then that the first significant twist occurred. Dr. Shepard called Arthur for a private conversation about Isabel's treatment. "Mr. Harrison, I need to inform you that your granddaughter's treatment will be much more complex and lengthy than we initially thought. The tests have revealed a rare form of the disease that will require intensive care for at least a year, maybe more." The businessman felt his legs weaken again. "A year?" The treatment protocol involves extremely expensive experimental drugs, daily neurological physiotherapy, and constant monitoring. Furthermore, your daughter Victoria doesn't seem to be in an emotional state to handle all this responsibility alone. Arthur looked through the office window into the room where Chloe was humming to Isabel, and an idea began to form in his mind. This unknown girl had shown more maternal instinct and genuine care in a few days than many adults showed in a lifetime. "Doctor, what if Chloe could stay with us as a kind of companion for Isabel?" Dr. Shepard raised his eyebrows. "Mr. Harrison, Chloe is also a child who needs care. She can't be held responsible for caring for another child." "That's not what I mean," Arthur explained quickly. "I mean, maybe she can stay with us as part of the family, so they can both receive the care they deserve." That night, Arthur called his company in Bridgewater to check on business in his absence. His partner and longtime friend, Roger Sterling, 48, answered with a strangely tense voice. "Arthur, good thing you called. We have some problems here that need your urgent attention." "What kind of problems, Roger?" "I'm at the hospital with Isabel and can't travel right now. Complicated contractual issues, some clients questioning our operations. Nothing that can't wait a few more days, but it would be better if you could come back soon." After hanging up, Arthur felt a strange unease. In 20 years of partnership with Roger, he had never detected that tone of nervousness in his partner's voice. But with Isabel hospitalized and Chloe needing care, he couldn't afford to worry about the company at the moment. Back in the hospital room, he found a scene that moved him deeply. Victoria was sitting beside Isabel's bed, and Chloe was on her lap, both watching the baby sleep peacefully. "Dad," Victoria said with tears in her eyes, "I think Chloe understands Isabel in a way I can't. It's like they communicate without words." It was true. Whenever Isabel stirred, Chloe immediately knew if it was hunger, pain, or just the need to be held. Her maternal instinct, developed prematurely by the difficult circumstances of her life, was being channeled into caring for the sick baby. But not everything would be simple. Sarah, the social worker, had initiated the bureaucratic process to find a foster family for Chloe. Following established protocols, the girl could be removed from the hospital at any moment. When Chloe learned of this possibility for the first time since arriving at the hospital, she cried desperately, "I don't want to go. I want to stay with baby Isabel. She needs me," she sobbed, clinging to Arthur's uniform. It was in this moment of desperation that Arthur made a decision that would change all his priorities in life. Looking at this brave girl who had saved his granddaughter and was now crying in fear of being separated from her, he knew he couldn't let it happen. The bureaucracy to get temporary custody of Chloe would be long and complicated, but Arthur was determined to face any obstacle. What he didn't know was that his partner Roger was already masterminding a plan that would threaten not only his company, but all the financial stability needed to care for both girls. Chapter 3. A week had passed since Isabel's admission when Chloe began to show worrying signs of physical deterioration. Nurse Claire was the first to notice that the girl was paler than usual and had difficulty standing for long periods. "Mr. Harrison, I need to speak with you," she said, pulling him into a corner of the hallway. "Chloe is showing symptoms of severe malnutrition. She needs urgent medical attention." Dr. Shepard was called to examine Chloe, and what he found left him deeply concerned. "This child is in critical condition," he diagnosed after a series of tests. "Severe anemia, extreme vitamin deficiency, and signs that her body is consuming its own muscle tissue to survive." The irony of the situation was cruel. While Chloe was devotedly caring for Isabel, her own body was wasting away from years of deprivation and neglect. Arthur felt an overwhelming guilt as he realized he had been so focused on his granddaughter that he hadn't noticed the silent suffering of the girl who had saved her. "She needs to be admitted immediately," the doctor continued. "And I'll be frank. If she had continued for a few more weeks in this condition, the damage could have been irreversible." Chloe was admitted to the same floor as Isabel, and for the first time since she arrived at the hospital, the two girls were separated. Isabel's reaction was immediate and concerning. Her temperature rose, she started having mild seizures again, and she cried incessantly. "It's astonishing," Dr. Shepard commented to the nurses. "The baby's vital signs destabilize whenever Chloe isn't around. I've never seen anything like this in my 20 years of practice." Victoria, who had started to grow closer to Chloe in recent days, was devastated to see the girl so frail in the hospital bed. "Dad, how did we not notice she was so sick?" she questioned with tears in her eyes. During Chloe's first night of admission, she had high fevers and deliriums. She called out for someone named John, talked about a place where the people were beautiful, and insistently repeated that she needed to take care of the angel baby. Sarah, the social worker, took advantage of Chloe's weakened state to speed up the bureaucratic processes. "Mr. Harrison, I understand your intention to help, but this girl needs specialized care that you may not be able to provide. I've found an experienced foster family that can take her in." "No," Arthur said firmly. "Chloe saved my granddaughter. I'm not going to abandon her now. But do you understand the responsibility you're taking on? This child has deep traumas, complex medical needs, and she has a heart bigger than many adults I know," Arthur interrupted. "I'll do whatever it takes to care for her. Meanwhile, In Bridgewater, Roger Sterling was meticulously executing a plan he had been plotting for months. During Arthur's absence, he had altered important contracts, redirected payments, and initiated secret negotiations with the Chinese company Golden Dragon Mining, which was interested in buying Harrison Mining at a price far below its market value. "Mr. Sterling," said Mr. Chen, the Chinese company's representative, during a confidential meeting, "Our investors are interested, but they need to ensure that Mr. Harrison won't interfere with the negotiation." "You can leave that to me," Roger replied with a calculated smile. "Arthur is dealing with serious family problems. By the time he realizes the company's situation, it will be too late to reverse it." Back at the hospital, an extraordinary discovery was about to change the entire medical understanding of Isabel's case. Dr. Shepard, intrigued by the connection between the two girls, decided to run more detailed tests on both of them. "Nurse Claire, I need you to document exactly when Chloe is present in the room and when she isn't, correlating it with Isabel's vital signs," he instructed. The results were astounding. Whenever Chloe was near, Isabel's cortisol levels dropped significantly, her blood pressure stabilized, and her brain activity showed more relaxed patterns. "It's as if Chloe's presence activates some kind of healing response in Isabel's body," Dr. Shepard theorized to his team. "I've never seen anything scientifically documented about this." On the third day of Chloe's admission, she showed significant improvement. The intravenous nutrients and medications had started to take effect, and she was able to sit up in bed for the first time. Her first question was about Isabel. "How's the angel baby?" she asked in her still weak voice. "She misses you," replied Victoria, who had spent the night by Chloe's bed. "Do you want to see her?" Chloe's eyes lit up, and she tried to get up immediately. With the help of a wheelchair, she was taken to Isabel's room, and the baby's reaction was immediate. She stopped crying, her little eyes turned to Chloe, and she managed something resembling a smile. "Hi, angel baby," Chloe whispered, reaching out her little hand to gently touch Isabel's face. "Chloe's here. I won't leave you alone anymore." At that moment, something unexpected happened. Isabel firmly grasped Chloe's finger, and for the first time since her admission, she remained completely calm and relaxed for hours. Dr. Shepard, observing the scene, made an unusual decision. "I'm going to allow Chloe to stay in the same room as Isabel, as long as both are being monitored. I believe the separation is harming both children." It was during that first night together that Victoria witnessed something that would change her perspective on motherhood forever. Chloe, still weak and with an IV in her arm, instinctively knew when Isabel was uncomfortable and knew exactly how to soothe her. "How do you know what she needs?" Victoria asked, fascinated. "She talks to me," Chloe answered naturally. "Not with words, but she talks. She tells me when she's in pain, when she's scared, when she wants to be held." Victoria, who had been battling depression and feeling inadequate as a mother, began to learn from Chloe. The 4-year-old girl, who had developed maternal instincts out of a need for survival, was teaching a 28-year-old mother how to care for her own daughter. But the peace would be temporary. Arthur received an urgent call from his lawyer, Mr. Richard Peterson, who had discovered serious irregularities at the company. "Arthur, you need to come back to Bridgewater immediately," Richard said with a tense voice. "Roger has made moves that could compromise the entire company. Contracts were altered without your authorization, and there are indications he's negotiating a hostile takeover." "That's impossible," Arthur replied, incredulous. "Roger has been my partner for 20 years. He's my friend. The documents don't lie. If you don't act quickly, you could lose everything." Arthur looked at the two girls in the hospital room. Isabel was finally stable, Chloe was recovering, and now he had to choose between saving his company and staying to care for them. The decision would be even more complicated when Sarah appeared with a court order. "Mr. Harrison, I regret to inform you but I've received an order to remove Chloe from your temporary custody. A family has been approved to take her in permanently." "When?" he asked, feeling the world crumble. "Tomorrow morning." That night, Chloe, sensing the tension of the adults around her, asked a question that broke everyone's heart. "Did I do something wrong? Why does everyone want to send me away?" Arthur hugged the girl, feeling tears he hadn't shed in years stream down his face. In less than 24 hours, he could lose both his company and the girl who had saved his granddaughter and transformed his view on what truly mattered in life. Nurse Claire, observing the scene, made a decision that violated all hospital protocols. "Mr. Harrison, if there's some delay in the paperwork, maybe the transfer will have to be postponed for a few days." It was a small window, but perhaps enough for Arthur to find a way to keep Chloe safe and save the business that would support the treatment for both girls. Chapter 4. The early morning at the hospital was marked by a discovery that would completely change the course of Isabel's treatment. Dr. Shepherd, who had spent the night analyzing the baby's tests and improvement patterns, called Arthur for an urgent conversation before sunrise. "Mr. Harrison, what I'm about to tell you may seem unbelievable, but the data is irrefutable," the doctor began, with piles of reports spread across his desk. "Isabel isn't just improving in Chloe's presence. The tests show she is developing specific antibodies that only appear when Chloe is nearby." Arthur frowned, trying to understand. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means that somehow contact with Chloe is stimulating Isabel's immune system to fight the neurological infection. It's as if Chloe's body produces something that complements what is missing in Isabel's body." The medical explanation was interrupted by the arrival of Sarah with 2 social workers and a court officer. "Mr. Harrison, I'm sorry, but I can no longer delay the transfer. Chloe needs to come with us now." "Wait," Dr. Shepherd intervened. "As the responsible physician, I must inform you that removing Chloe could severely compromise Isabel's treatment. There is medical evidence that both children depend on each other for the healing process." Sarah hesitated. "Doctor, with all due respect, that sounds scientifically impossible." "I thought so too, but the facts are clear. If Chloe is removed now, Isabel could regress rapidly and even not survive." The unspoken word echoed in the hallway. Arthur felt his legs weaken again, but this time not from diabetes, but from the despair of imagining losing his granddaughter. At that moment, Victoria appeared, carrying Chloe in her arms. The girl had insisted on going to Isabel, even though she was still weak from her hospitalization. "What's going on?" Victoria asked, noticing the tension in the air. "They want to take Chloe away," Arthur explained, his voice thick with anguish. Chloe, understanding the situation, clung to Victoria's neck. "I don't want to go. Please don't let them take me. The angel baby will be sad without me." As if understanding the words, Isabel's desperate cry came from the nearby room. She had woken up and noticed Chloe's absence. Her cry was different, sharper, more desperate, as if it were a call for help. Dr. Shepherd made a bold medical decision. "Officer, as the responsible physician, I am issuing a statement that separating these children at this moment constitutes a life-threatening risk for both. I request a judicial reassessment of the case." Sarah protested. "Doctor, this is highly irregular. I can't base legal decisions on unproven medical theories." "Then prove me wrong," the doctor challenged. "Take Chloe away for an hour and observe what happens to Isabel. If I'm wrong, I'll take full responsibility. It was a cruel but necessary test. Chloe was taken to another wing of the hospital, and the effect on Isabel was immediate and devastating. Her temperature shot up to 104 degrees. She had 3 seizures in 15 minutes, and her heartbeat became dangerously irregular. "Bring Chloe back now," Dr. Shepherd yelled to the nurse, as the medical team rushed to stabilize Isabel. When Chloe returned to the room, still carried in a nurse's arms, Isabel gradually calmed down. Her temperature began to drop, the seizures ceased, and her heart returned to a normal rhythm. Sarah watched everything in silence, clearly shaken by what she had witnessed. "Doctor, this is impossible from a scientific point of view." "But it's happening," Dr. Shepherd replied, "and I need more time to study this phenomenon before any irreversible decision is made." Meanwhile, in Bridgewater, Roger was finalizing the last details of his betrayal. He met secretly with Mr. Chen in a discreet restaurant downtown. "The papers are almost ready," Roger informed him. "Arthur is still at the hospital, completely distracted by family problems. When he gets back, it will be too late to stop the sale. And what about the employees? Do they suspect anything?" Mr. Chen asked. "The engineering team is questioning some changes in the projects, but nothing I can't control. Carl Stevens, the chief engineer, has been asking too many questions, but he's too loyal to Arthur to take any drastic action." What Roger didn't know was that Carl had discovered compromising documents and had already sent copies to Arthur's lawyer. The web of lies was beginning to unravel. Back at the hospital, a new crisis was brewing. Claire called Dr. Shepherd urgently. "Doctor, you need to see this. Chloe is exhibiting strange symptoms." The girl had begun to have episodes where she seemed to enter a trance, murmuring nonsensical things and moving her hands as if performing some kind of ritual. During these episodes, which lasted about 10 minutes, Isabel would become completely serene and relaxed. She talks about lights, about angels who care for sick children, the nurse reported. "It's unsettling, but Isabel reacts positively every time." Dr. Shepherd was intrigued. Had Chloe's trauma and malnutrition developed some kind of special psychological ability, or was there something deeper happening that science did not yet understand? Victoria, observing these episodes, began to question her own beliefs. "Dad, what if there's something spiritual in all this? What if Chloe was sent to save Isabel?" "Vic, you're starting to sound like your mother," Arthur replied, referring to his late wife who had always believed in signs and divine protection. That same day, a call from Mr. Peterson brought bad news about the company. "Arthur, the situation is worse than we thought. Roger not only altered contracts, but also took out hefty loans in the company's name, using the machinery and equipment as collateral." "How much?" Arthur asked, dreading the answer. $15 million. If we can't reverse this situation in a week, you could lose everything, including the company." The irony was cruel. To save his granddaughter, Arthur might lose the resources needed to continue her treatment. And to keep Chloe safe, he needed financial stability that he might no longer have. That night, an unexpected discovery shed new light on the mystery of Chloe. Sarah, digging deeper into the girl's past, discovered old hospital records. "Mr. Harrison, I found something about Chloe's medical history," she said, holding documents. "She was born premature, spent months in a neonatal ICU, and had direct contact with dozens of other sick children during her first years of life. And what does that mean? It means it's possible she developed natural immunity to various diseases, including variants of the one affecting Isabel. Her body may have created unique antibodies that she is now sharing with your granddaughter." Dr. Shepherd, hearing the explanation, had a revelation that would scientifically explain what we're seeing. Chloe isn't just a comforting presence for Isabel. She is literally a source of biological healing. But this discovery brought a new, disturbing concern. If Chloe really possessed unique healing properties, other people might want to exploit her, turning her into a research subject or worse. As if the situation wasn't complex enough, Victoria made a discovery that changed her perception of herself as a mother. While watching Chloe care for Isabel, she realized her depression had begun to lift. "Dad, since Chloe arrived, I haven't had the dark thoughts," she confessed. "It's like she brings light not just to Isabel, but to our whole family." Arthur hugged his daughter, noticing a real positive change in her behavior. But the question remained, how to protect Chloe from a world that might want to use her, while facing the betrayal of his best friend and the possible loss of everything he had worked for. The answer would come in a more dramatic way than he could ever imagine. Chapter 5. The second week at the hospital brought a twist no one expected. Dr. Shepherd woke Arthur before dawn with an urgent expression that immediately put him on alert. "Mr. Harrison, I need you to come with me to the lab. The results of Chloe's tests have brought discoveries that change everything." In the lab, microscopes and charts scattered across the counters told an extraordinary story. "Chloe's blood tests show something I've never seen in my years of medicine," Dr. Shepherd explained, pointing to the results. "She has unique antibodies, developed during her first years of life, when she was exposed to multiple infections. But is that good or bad for her?" Arthur asked, trying to grasp the medical complexity. "It's extraordinary. Her body has developed an ability to produce substances that specifically fight the type of neurological infection affecting Isabel. But there's a problem. This process is rapidly depleting her nutritional reserves." The revelation was terrifying. Chloe was literally sacrificing herself biologically to save Isabel without even knowing it. Her frail little body was giving everything it had to heal the baby. How long can she keep this up? The question escaped Arthur's mouth like a desperate whisper. "With proper care, we can stabilize her. But if the process continues at the current rate, in a few weeks she'll be in critical condition again." At that very moment, in Bridgewater, Arthur's business situation was collapsing completely. Carl Stevens, the chief engineer at Harrison Mining, had discovered that Roger had not only forged documents, but had also sabotaged important equipment to justify the emergency loans. "Mr. Peterson," Carl urgently called the lawyer, "I found evidence that Roger purposely damaged 3 excavators last month. He used it as a justification to request loans for emergency repairs, but the money was diverted." "Carl, this is very serious. Do you have proof?" Mr. Peterson asked. "Photos, technical reports, everything. And there's more. I found out he switched Mr. Harrison's medication on the trip to Oak Creek. The diabetes pills were replaced with placebos. The revelation shocked Mr. Peterson. Roger hadn't just stolen from the company, he had deliberately caused Arthur's diabetic crisis, putting both him and Isabel's lives at risk. Back at the hospital, Chloe was having one of her most intense mystical episodes. Sitting beside Isabel's crib, she moved her hands over the baby while murmuring incomprehensible words. Her eyes were closed, but tears streamed down her cheeks. "He's very sad," she said suddenly, opening her eyes and looking directly at Arthur. "The man you trust. He made the medicine stop working." Arthur froze. How could a 4-year-old child know about his medication? About Roger? "Chloe, what are you talking about?" "I saw it in a dream. The man with glasses switched your pills because he wanted you to get sick on the road. He wanted to hurt you and the angel baby." Victoria, who was watching the scene, felt a shiver run down her spine. "Dad, what if she's really seeing things that happened? What if they're not just delusions?" Before Arthur could answer, his cell phone rang. It was Mr. Peterson with Carl's discoveries about the medication sabotage. The coincidence was impossible to ignore. "Arthur, I need you to sit down," the lawyer said. "We've discovered that Roger deliberately altered your diabetes medication before the trip. He planned your crisis on the road." Arthur looked at Chloe, who was watching him with her big, childlike eyes, and felt a mix of terror and fascination. How did she know? That afternoon, Sarah returned to the hospital with a new court order, but this time accompanied by a specialized medical team for rare cases. "Mr. Harrison, the court has decided that Chloe will remain under specialized medical care, but not necessarily with your family." "What does that mean?" Victoria asked, protectively holding Chloe's hand. It means she will be transferred to a medical research center in a major city where they can study her unique abilities and offer the best treatment. No! Chloe screamed, clinging to Arthur. I don't want to go far away from the angel baby. She'll get sick without me, Dr. Shepherd intervened again. With all due respect, transferring her now would be detrimental to both children. Isabel is in a critical recovery phase. Doctor, I understand your medical concerns, but there are legal and ethical issues involved, Sarah argued. If Chloe truly has special abilities, she needs care that goes beyond what this family can offer. It was at this moment that an unexpected figure appeared at the door. It was Dr. Amanda Reed, a renowned neuroscientist from a top university, who had been called in to evaluate the case. Analyzing the medical reports, she said, I believe we are dealing with a rare but not supernatural neurological phenomenon. Chloe has developed a neural hypersensitivity that allows her to detect biological patterns in other people, and that explains how she knew about the medication. Arthur asked. Possibly. Children with severe trauma sometimes develop extremely acute perceptive abilities as a survival mechanism. She might be detecting chemical inconsistencies, subtle behavioral changes, things that we adults ignore. But the scientific explanation didn't diminish the mystery. That night, Chloe had another episode, this time even more specific. The man with glasses is in a big house, talking to people who speak differently, she said, her eyes closed but moving rapidly. They have papers that will make you lose your workhouse. Arthur immediately called Mr. Peterson. I need you to check if Roger is meeting with foreign businessmen tonight. An hour later, the lawyer confirmed, Arthur, I hired an investigator. Roger is in a meeting with Chinese representatives at his residence right now. It looks like they're signing documents. The accuracy of Chloe's visions was becoming impossible to explain by science alone. There was something more happening, something that defied all rational logic. Meanwhile, Isabel's condition showed remarkable improvement. But Dr. Shepherd found something worrying in Chloe's tests. Her iron and protein levels were dropping dangerously. It's as if her body is cannibalizing itself to produce the antibodies that are healing Isabel, he explained to Arthur. We need to find a way to stop this process before it causes irreversible damage. The solution came from an unexpected source. Dr. Reed suggested an experimental therapy where Chloe would undergo controlled neural stimulation sessions, which could regulate her antibody production without depleting her system. It's a new treatment, still in the testing phase, she explained. But it might be the only way to save both girls. Arthur faced an impossible decision: subject Chloe to a risky experimental treatment or watch both children slowly waste away. That same night, the situation became even more complicated when Victoria made a confession that changed everything. Dad, I need to tell you something, she said, crying. Before Chloe arrived, I was thinking about giving up on everything. The depression was so strong I couldn't even look at Isabel without feeling guilt and despair. Vic, you don't have to. I have to. Chloe didn't just save Isabel. She saved me too. And now they want to take her away, turn her into a research subject, and I can't let that happen. It was then that Arthur made the bravest decision of his life. We'll fight for her, no matter what it costs, no matter if we lose everything. Chloe stays with us, but what he didn't know was that Roger had discovered the investigation and was preparing a final blow that could destroy not only the company, but all the financial stability needed for the girls' medical care. Chapter 6. Thursday morning brought a devastating discovery that would completely change the course of events. Mr. Peterson called Arthur at 5 a.m, his voice trembling with indignation and urgency. Arthur, Roger accelerated everything. He forged your signature on documents selling the company overnight. The transaction with the Chinese was finalized for $15 million, less than half of Harrison Mining's actual value. Arthur felt the world collapse around him. How is that possible? How did he manage to forge my signature? He used old power of attorney forms you signed for routine operations and tampered with them. Technically, in the eyes of the law, you sold the company last night. From the hospital room, Arthur looked at Chloe and Isabel sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the financial chaos unfolding. How would he explain to the girls that he might no longer be able to afford the medical treatments they both needed? At that very moment, Chloe woke with a start, as if she had sensed Arthur's anguish. "Uncle Arthur, you're sad. Did the man with glasses do something bad again?" The accuracy of the girl's perception continued to haunt everyone around her. "How do you know that, little one?" "I feel it," she replied simply. "Just like I feel the angel baby gets better when I'm close. It's like people have different colors when they're happy or sad." Dr. Reed, who had arrived early to begin preparations for the experimental treatment, overheard the conversation and was fascinated. "Chloe, can you tell me about these colors?" The girl nodded seriously. Uncle Arthur had a dark color around him, like when there's a storm. Aunt Victoria had a gray color when she got here, but now she has a yellow color, and the angel baby always has a golden color when I'm near. Dr. Reed jotted down quick notes. This is extreme emotional synesthesia combined with neurological hypersensitivity. She is literally seeing people's emotions as colors. But the conversation was interrupted by the urgent arrival of 2 court officers, accompanied by Sarah and a new, stricter social worker. "Mr. Arthur Harrison," one of the officers said, "we have a court order for the immediate transfer of the minor Chloe to state custody. There are questions about your financial ability to provide the necessary care." "What do you mean?" Victoria protested. "My father hasn't lost anything yet." The new social worker, Ms. Marcia Thorne, a cold 50-year-old woman, replied with indifference. "We've received information that Mr. Harrison has lost his company and is no longer able to afford specialized medical treatments. The girl will be transferred to a suitable institution." "What information? Who provided this information?" Arthur asked, his indignation growing. "The sources are confidential," Ms. Thorne replied coldly. Dr. Shepherd intervened once more. "Gentlemen, as the responsible physician, I must inform you that separating Chloe and Isabel at this specific moment could be fatal for both. Isabel has shown a 60% improvement in recent weeks, directly related to Chloe's presence." "Doctor, medical issues cannot interfere with judicial decisions about child welfare," Ms. Thorne retorted. "The girl needs care that goes beyond being a nurse for another child." Chloe, sensing the tension, began to tremble. "Please don't take me. The angel baby will get very sick without me. I promise to be good. I promise not to be any trouble." The girl's pleas broke the hearts of everyone present, except Miss Thorne, who remained impassive. "The decision has been made. The transfer will happen in 1 hour." It was at this moment that Victoria took an action that surprised everyone, including herself. "No," she said firmly, positioning herself between Chloe and the officers. "You are not taking her. Ma'am, resisting a court order constitutes the crime of disobedience," one of the officers warned. "Then arrest me," Victoria replied, hugging Chloe protectively. "But I will not let you destroy 2 children because of bureaucracy." Victoria's courage inspired Dr. Shepherd to make a bold medical decision. "Officers, I am declaring a medical emergency. Any attempt to remove Chloe will be considered negligence that could result in Isabel's critical decline." While the standoff unfolded at the hospital in Bridgewater, Carl Stevens was executing a desperate plan to expose Roger. He had managed to access the company's computers during the night and copied all the incriminating files. "Mr. Peterson," he called urgently, "I found the Chinese connection. Golden Dragon Mining isn't just a company interested in buying Harrison Mining. They're being used by Roger for money laundering from other fraudulent schemes." "Carl, this is explosive. Are you sure?" Absolutely. Roger isn't just robbing Arthur. He's been using the company as a front for illegal financial operations for years. Mr. Peterson realized they had a chance to reverse everything, but they would need to act quickly before Roger destroyed the evidence. Back at the hospital, the situation was escalating dangerously when something unexpected happened. Isabel, as if sensing the tension in the room, began to have severe seizures. Her temperature shot up, and the monitors began to beep frantically. "Move aside!" Dr. Shepard shouted, rushing to stabilize the baby. "Chloe, I need you here now!" Chloe broke free from Victoria's hug and ran to Isabel's crib. Immediately, she placed her small hands on the baby and began to hum softly. The effect was almost instantaneous. The seizures ceased, the temperature started to drop, and the heartbeat stabilized. Ms. Thorne watched the scene in astonishment. This is not scientifically possible, but it's happening," said Dr. Reed, who had documented the entire episode. "And if you remove Chloe now, you may be signing Isabel's death sentence." At that moment, Arthur's cell phone rang. It was Mr. Peterson with news that would change everything. "Arthur, we have enough evidence to nullify the company's sale and criminally prosecute Roger. Carl found proof of money laundering that involves not just Harrison Mining, but several other companies. Does that mean I can get the company back? More than that. It means Roger could be arrested today, and the entire fraudulent operation will be undone." Arthur relayed the information to the officers present, who immediately contacted their superiors. Arthur's legal situation was changing rapidly, which could affect the decision about Chloe. But Ms. Thorne was not swayed. Even if the financial problems are resolved, the question remains about the suitability of this family to care for a child with such unique special needs. It was then that Dr. Reed made a surprising proposal. "What if I were to personally supervise Chloe's care while she remains with the Harrison family? I can ensure she receives the best medical treatment while maintaining the emotional bonds that are clearly beneficial for her recovery." The proposal created a new dynamic. A renowned neuroscientist from a top university offering personal supervision completely changed the perception of the family's ability to properly care for Chloe. But Ms. Thorne still resisted. "Dr. Reed, even with your supervision, there are ethical questions about keeping a child in a situation where she is being used to heal another child." Chloe, who had heard the entire conversation, surprised everyone by speaking with a maturity impressive for her 4 years. "I'm not being used. I choose to take care of the angel baby because I like her. Just like you chose to be a doctor to take care of children." The simplicity and truth of Chloe's response temporarily silenced Ms. Thorne. At that moment, news arrived from Bridgewater that completely changed the scenario. Roger had been arrested red-handed trying to destroy company documents, and the FBI had frozen all accounts related to the fraudulent operation. "The company is saved, Mr. Peterson reported by phone. And there's more. We discovered that Roger has been embezzling money for 5 years. The total amount we'll be able to recover is almost double what he recently stole." Arthur felt immense relief, but knew the battle for Chloe was not yet won. Ms. Thorne seemed determined to remove her, regardless of the circumstances. It was then that Victoria made the most important decision of her life. "Ms. Thorne, I would like to officially file for the adoption of Chloe. Not as a favor or charity, but because she has become the daughter I always wanted to have." The declaration caught everyone by surprise, including Arthur and Chloe herself, who looked at Victoria with tears in her eyes. Chapter 7. Victoria's declaration about the adoption created a tense silence in the hospital room. Chloe looked at her with an expression of astonishment and hope that broke everyone's heart. Ms. Thorne, however, showed no emotion. "Miss Harrison, an adoption decision cannot be made on an emotional impulse," the social worker said coldly. "There are strict protocols that must be followed. And frankly, Your recent psychological state raises questions about your ability to adequately care for two children. My psychological state has improved drastically since Chloe arrived, Victoria replied firmly. She not only saved my daughter physically, but she saved me emotionally. Dr. Reed intervened with scientific data. Ms. Thorne, I have documented Victoria's psychological evolution over the past few weeks. There is a measurable improvement in all indicators of postpartum depression. Chloe's presence has been therapeutic for the entire family, but Ms. Thorne remained inflexible. Scientific data does not replace formal psychological evaluations and proper observation periods. The girl will be transferred today. It was at this moment that an unexpected figure appeared at the door. It was Dr. Philip Morgan, the hospital's general director and a respected authority in the state's medical community. Ms. Thorne, I apologize for the interruption, but I must inform you that this case has just gained national attention, he said, holding a tablet with online news. The media has discovered the story of the girl who saved a baby on the road and is now healing her with her presence. There are reporters outside the hospital. Chloe hid behind Victoria upon hearing about reporters. Her life on the streets had taught her to fear crowds and unwanted attention. This complicates everything, Ms. Thorne admitted, showing uncertainty for the first time. Any decision we make now will be widely publicized and scrutinized. Dr. Morgan continued. Furthermore, we've received calls from 3 international universities interested in studying the case, a neurological research foundation offering funding, and, well, a documentary production company wanting to buy the rights to the story. Arthur felt a chill run down his spine. They want to turn Chloe into a spectacle, he said, protectively hugging the girl. That's exactly why she needs proper institutional protection, Ms. Thorne argued. A private family doesn't have the resources to handle this kind of media pressure. At that moment, Mr. Peterson's phone rang, and he answered immediately. After a brief conversation, he addressed the group with surprising news. Arthur, the situation with Roger has taken on an even larger dimension. The FBI has discovered he was selling information about mineral-rich lands to foreign companies for years. The value of the damages could exceed $50 million. And what does that mean for me? Arthur asked. It means that in addition to recovering your company, you may receive substantial compensation from the government. Your financial situation has not only stabilized, but has significantly improved. Miss Thorne heard the information with evident displeasure. Her main argument against Chloe staying with the Harrison family, financial instability, had just been completely refuted. But the situation became even more complicated when Nurse Claire entered the room with a worried expression. Dr. Shepard, Mr. Harrison, we have a problem. There's a man downstairs claiming to be Chloe's relative. He's demanding to speak with her. Everyone's blood ran cold. Chloe had never mentioned having living relatives, and her reaction was immediate and terrifying. She began to tremble violently and hid under the hospital bed. No, 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 she repeated desperately. He can't take me. I was good. I took care of the angel baby. Victoria immediately bent down to reach Chloe under the bed. Chloe, who is this person? Do you know him? It's Uncle Martin, the girl sobbed. He's Mrs. Gable's brother. When she disappeared, he said I was too expensive to take care of and sent me away. The revelation brought a new traumatic dimension to Chloe's story. She hadn't been simply abandoned. She had been deliberately rejected by a relative who considered her existence a financial burden. Dr. Shepard made an immediate medical decision. I will not allow this child to be exposed to more trauma. Any conversation with this man will have to wait until she is emotionally stable. But Miss Thorne saw an opportunity. Actually, this strengthens the argument for the girl's removal if there is a biological relative interested in claiming custody. Interested? Arthur interrupted indignantly. He abandoned her. How can that be considered genuine interest? At that moment, Sarah, The first social worker who had followed the case from the beginning returned to the hospital with important documents. "Ms. Thorne, I must inform you that I've investigated Martin's background," she said, clearly agitated. "He has a record of child neglect and was reported for mistreating other children under his temporary care." "And he can still claim custody?" Victoria asked, horrified. "Legally, biological relatives have priority, but not absolute priority, especially given his history," Sarah explained. "However, the final decision would be up to a judge." Dr. Reed made a crucial scientific observation. "I must add that the trauma of separating Chloe from Isabel now, especially to place her with someone who clearly rejected her before, could cause a severe neurological setback in both children." It was then that Chloe, still under the bed, made a statement that changed the entire dynamic of the situation. "I don't want to go with Uncle Martin," she said in a small but determined voice. "He said I eat too much and cry too much. But here I help the angel baby get better, and Aunt Victoria teaches me beautiful things, and Uncle Arthur gives me hugs when I have nightmares." The innocence and clarity of Chloe's explanation of what constituted a real family versus biological ties deeply touched everyone present, including Miss Thorne, who for the first time showed signs of hesitation. At that moment, Dr. Morgan received a call from the hospital's legal department. Dr. Morgan, the Harrison family's lawyer, has filed for an emergency guardianship order for the minor Chloe based on the imminent risk of psychological trauma if she is removed from her current hospital environment. "And is there a legal precedent for that?" Ms. Thorne asked. "There is, especially considering the documented medical evidence of the neurological interdependence between the two children," Dr. Morgan replied. Meanwhile, downstairs in the hospital, Martin was becoming increasingly aggressive with the security team. Claire went down to observe the situation and returned with disturbing information. "He didn't come alone," she reported. "There's a man with him who identified himself as a representative of scientific interests. They're talking about studies and financial compensation." The revelation was like a punch to Arthur's gut. "They want to use Chloe as a lab rat." Dr. Reed was furious. "That is absolutely unethical. A child cannot be used as a research subject, especially against her will and well-being." At this critical moment, Chloe came out from under the bed and did something surprising. She walked over to Dr. Reed and held her hand. "Doctor, you're good. Can I trust you?" she asked with her big, innocent eyes. "Yes, you can, Chloe. Then please don't let them take me. I promise to be useful here. I promise to take good care of the angel baby and learn everything you want to teach me." The simplicity of Chloe's request, a 4-year-old child offering to be useful in exchange for protection, completely broke through Dr. Reed's emotional defenses. "Chloe, you don't have to be useful to deserve to be loved and protected," she said, kneeling to be at the girl's level. "You deserve that just for existing." Ms. Thorne observed the entire interaction in silence, clearly conflicted between her bureaucratic protocols and the emotional reality of the situation. It was then that Isabel, as if sensing the tension in the room, began to cry in her crib. Chloe immediately went to her and began to hum, and the baby calmed down instantly. "Dr. Morgan," Ms. Thorne finally said, "I need time to reevaluate this case. The situation is more complex than I initially thought." "How much time?" Arthur asked anxiously. 72 hours. But Chloe will remain under hospital protection during this period, and under no circumstances will she be handed over to Martin until a full investigation is conducted. It was a temporary but crucial victory. Chloe could remain with her chosen family for at least 3 more days, enough time for Arthur's lawyers to prepare a solid defense for permanent custody. Chapter 8. The 72 hours of hospital protection began with a discovery no one expected. During the night, Chloe had what Dr. Reed classified as her most intense neurological episode yet. She woke up talking about the man who was in the dark room counting money, and describing specific details about Roger's arrest that had not been released to the public. "He was crying," Chloe said, her eyes still closed but moving rapidly. "He said he just wanted money to buy a big house." But the people in uniforms didn't believe him. Mr. Peterson, who had spent the night at the hospital coordinating the legal defense, was perplexed. Chloe is describing exactly what happened during Roger's interrogation. How can she know this? Her neurological capacity may be expanding due to emotional stress, Dr. Reed theorized. In rare cases, severe trauma combined with neural hypersensitivity can create perceptive connections that challenge our current understanding of neuroscience. But the morning brought more immediate problems. Martin had hired an aggressive lawyer, Mr. Henry Vance, known for controversial cases involving child custody. "Mr. Peterson," Mr. Vance called with an arrogant tone, "my client has indisputable legal rights to the minor, Chloe. Any attempt to prolong this situation will be considered kidnapping." "Your client abandoned the child on the streets," Mr. Peterson replied firmly. "That constitutes child abandonment. Temporary abandonment due to financial difficulties does not nullify parental rights. Besides, my client now has the resources to properly care for the minor." The mention of resources confirmed everyone's worst suspicions. Martin had clearly made some kind of financial deal with the researchers interested in studying Chloe. That morning, a crucial meeting took place in the hospital's conference room. Present were Arthur, Victoria, Mr. Peterson, Dr. Reed, Sarah, Ms. Thorne, and to everyone's surprise, the District Attorney for Children and Youth, Mr. Charles Monroe. "I have analyzed all aspects of this case," Mr. Monroe began, a serious man of 45 with a reputation for being inflexible on child protection issues. "The situation is extraordinarily complex, involving unique medical, legal, and ethical aspects." Victoria held Arthur's hand, both fearing the worst. On one hand, the DA continued, "There is clear evidence that the minor Chloe is receiving exceptional care with the Harrison family, and that her removal could cause irreversible harm to both her and the minor Isabel." On the other hand, Ms. Thorne interrupted, "There are questions about the appropriateness of keeping a child in a situation where she is being used as a medical treatment for another child." Dr. Reed spoke up immediately. "With all due respect, Ms. Thorne, my studies show that Chloe is not being used. There is a natural neurological symbiosis that benefits both children. Separating them would be equivalent to separating conjoined twins with interconnected nervous systems." Mr. Monroe took careful notes. "Dr. Reed, can you scientifically explain how this is possible?" "Chloe developed extreme neurological hypersensitivity during her early years as a survival mechanism. This hypersensitivity allows her to detect and respond to the neurological patterns of other people. In Isabel's case, she can identify exactly what the baby needs to stabilize neurologically." "And what about the claims that she has supernatural abilities?" the DA asked. "There's nothing supernatural. It's advanced neuroscience that we are only beginning to understand. Chloe is essentially a natural neurological translator." At that moment, Nurse Claire entered the room urgently. "Dr. Shepherd needs everyone in Isabel's room immediately. Something extraordinary has happened." Everyone rushed to the room, where they found a scene that would change the entire understanding of the case. Isabel, who had turned 6 months old the previous week, was sitting up alone in her crib for the first time, smiling and babbling sounds that were close to words. "This is impossible," Dr. Shepherd murmured. "Children with the degree of neurological impairment Isabel had should not be able to sit up or vocalize at this age." Chloe was beside the crib, humming softly, and when she saw everyone enter, she said simply, "The angel baby is getting strong. She wants to stand up like me." Dr. Reed immediately began to perform basic neurological tests on Isabel. The results were astounding. The baby responded to visual and auditory stimuli completely normally. Her reflexes were perfect, and she demonstrated cognitive development appropriate for her age. "Dr. Shepherd," she said, her voice choked with emotion, "Isabel is cured. There are no more signs of the neurological condition that almost killed her." The silence in the room was absolute. Everyone watched the baby, who smiled and played with her own hands, completely oblivious to the medical miracle she represented. Mr. Charles Monroe observed the scene with growing fascination. "Dr. Reed, this fundamentally changes the nature of this case. If Chloe truly cured Isabel, then we are dealing with an unprecedented medical ability." "Exactly. And that makes it even more crucial to protect her from people who want to exploit her commercially or scientifically," Dr. Reed responded. It was at this moment that Ms. Thorne made a surprising confession. "Mr. Monroe, I must admit that my initial reservations about this case were based on standard protocols. But what I am seeing here goes beyond any situation I have ever faced in 20 years of work." "What are you saying, Ms. Thorne?" Arthur asked. "I am saying that perhaps the traditional definition of an adequate family needs to be rethought when we are dealing with children with extraordinary needs and abilities." Victoria felt tears of relief stream down her face. For the first time, there was real hope that Chloe could stay with them. But the celebration was interrupted by the arrival of Mr. Henry Vance, accompanied by Martin and two men in suits who were clearly not lawyers. "Mr. Monroe," Mr. Vance said arrogantly, "I bring a proposal that will change this entire discussion. My client and his partners are willing to establish a research foundation that will offer the minor Chloe the best medical care in the world." "What kind of care?" Mr. Peterson asked suspiciously. One of the men in suits, who identified himself as Dr. Martin Kowalski from Johns Hopkins University, replied, "Specialized care in a state-of-the-art research facility where Chloe's unique skills can be properly studied and developed." Chloe, hearing the conversation, hid behind Victoria. "I don't want to go to a study place. I want to stay with my family." Dr. Kowalski ignored the child's reaction. "Miss Chloe possesses neurological capabilities that could revolutionize medicine. It would be irresponsible not to study them properly, and it would be criminal to turn a 4-year-old child into a lab rat," Arthur retorted furiously. Mr. Charles Monroe watched the entire interaction with growing attention. "Dr. Kowalski, the minor Chloe has fundamental rights that cannot be violated in the name of scientific research." "Mr. Monroe," Martin intervened for the first time, "I am the girl's closest relative. I have the legal right to make decisions about her future." "Mr. Martin," Mr. Monroe responded firmly, "parental rights are not absolute when they conflict with the child's well-being, and your motivations appear to be financial, not related to genuine love or care." It was then that something happened that changed the entire dynamic of the discussion. Chloe, still hidden behind Victoria, had another of her neurological episodes, but this time specifically directed at Martin. "Uncle Martin is lying," she said with her eyes closed. "He doesn't want to take care of me. He wants the money the men in nice clothes promised him. And then he's going to give me to them and never see me again." Martin turned pale. The girl is making things up." But Chloe continued, with an accuracy that chilled everyone's blood. "He signed papers that say he can sell me to the men for studies. They promised him a new house and a nice car." Dr. Kowalski and his companion glanced at each other nervously. The accuracy of Chloe's visions about documents and secret agreements was becoming impossible to ignore or explain. "Mr. Charles Monroe made a decision that would change everything. Mr. Vance, I need to see all contracts and agreements your client has signed related to the minor Chloe immediately." "Mr. Monroe, that's confidential. Not when it involves the possible trafficking of a minor for scientific exploitation," Mr. Monroe cut in. "Either you present the documents voluntarily or I will request a search and seizure warrant." At that moment, the truth about the real intentions of Martin and his partners was about to come to light in a way no one expected. Chapter 9. Mr. Charles Monroe's demand for the documents created a moment of extreme tension in the hospital room. Mr. Henry Vance whispered nervously with Martin, while Dr. Kowalski and his companion exchanged glances with growing discomfort. "Mr. Monroe," Mr. Vance tried, "these documents are legitimate business agreements." "That involve a 4-year-old child," Mr. Monroe interrupted firmly. "That in itself is questionable. But if there is evidence that the child is being treated as commercial property, we have a criminal problem." It was at this moment that Chloe had another neurological episode, this time even more specific and disturbing. She approached Dr. Kowalski and, with her eyes closed, began to speak in English, a language no one knew she was familiar with. "The little girl will live in a white room with cameras," she said in a strangely distant voice. "No toys, no hugs, only tests every day. The man with glasses wants to cut her hair and take her blood many times." Dr. Kowalski visibly recoiled, his face turning pale. What Chloe had described in perfect English were the exact confidential experimental protocols he had proposed to Martin. "How can she know this?" he muttered to his companion. "These details were never discussed in her presence." Dr. Reed, who spoke English fluently, and translated for the others what Chloe had said. The description of a white room with cameras and daily tests confirmed everyone's worst fears about the researchers' true intentions. "Dr. Kowalski," Mr. Monroe said in an icy voice, "are these the conditions you planned for a 4-year-old child?" "Mr. Monroe, our protocols strictly follow international ethical standards," Dr. Kowalski began. "For adult volunteers, not for children," Dr. Reed cut in indignantly. "What you are proposing is a complete violation of fundamental human rights." Martin, realizing the situation was deteriorating rapidly, tried one last desperate gambit. "Look, I just want what's best for Chloe. If these doctors can help her develop her skills—" "Uncle Martin is lying again," Chloe interrupted, opening her eyes and looking directly at him. "You don't care about me. You just want to buy a red car with the money." The specific accuracy of the observation, including the color of the car Martin had mentioned wanting to buy in private conversations, left everyone speechless. Mr. Monroe made a definitive decision. "Mr. Vance, your client and his associates are officially under investigation for attempted child exploitation. Any claim to custody is suspended pending the conclusion of the inquiry." "Mr. Monroe, this is an abuse of authority," Mr. Vance protested. "And this is the protection of a minor in a vulnerable situation," Mr. Monroe retorted. "Security, please escort these gentlemen out of the hospital." As Martin and the researchers were escorted out, a remarkable transformation took place in the room. Chloe, free from the pressure and fear, ran to Isabel's crib and began to play with the baby in a completely natural and carefree way. "Look how different she is when she's not under threat," Victoria observed. "It's like she's back to being a real 4-year-old. Dr. Reed made an important scientific observation. The extreme stress was intensifying her neurological abilities. Now that the threat has passed, she is returning to a more balanced neurological state. And is that good or bad?" Arthur asked, concerned. "It's great," Dr. Reed replied. "It means her abilities are controllable and don't represent a constant overload on her nervous system. She can have a normal life." Mr. Monroe observed the interaction between Chloe and Isabel with growing conviction. "Mr. Peterson, I will give my official opinion. Considering all aspects of this case, I recommend that temporary custody of Chloe be granted to the Harrison family with medical supervision from Dr. Reed." Victoria began to cry with relief, hugging Arthur. It was the first time in weeks they had a definitive legal victory. but the joy was tempered by an important practical concern. Dr. Shepherd called Dr. Reed and Arthur for a private conversation. "We need to discuss the medical future of both girls," he said. "Isabel is cured, but she will need neurological follow-up for at least 2 years to ensure there is no relapse." "And Chloe?" Arthur asked. "Chloe needs specialized psychological therapy to process the trauma of the last few years, as well as neurological follow-up to understand and control her special abilities." Dr. Reed added, "I am proposing a unique treatment protocol, integrated family therapy, where Chloe, Isabel, and Victoria receive coordinated care that strengthens family bonds while addressing the specific medical needs of each one." Arthur did not hesitate. "We'll do whatever it takes." In the following days, a new routine was established. Chloe officially moved into an apartment Arthur rented near the hospital, where she, Victoria, and Isabel could live as a family while continuing their treatments. The first night in the new home was significant. Chloe, who had spent months sleeping in hospital beds or on the streets, had trouble believing she had a room of her own. "Aunt Victoria," she said before sleeping, "can I really stay here forever?" "Forever and ever," Victoria replied, hugging her. "You are my daughter now, officially." But the tranquility was shaken when Chloe woke up in the middle of the night with a nightmare different from all the previous ones. She had dreamed of a woman who was crying and calling her name. "Aunt Victoria, who is the lady that has my face but is big?" she asked, describing specific details of a woman no one recognized. Dr. Reed, who was making a house call, was intrigued. "Chloe, can you draw this lady?" The drawing Chloe made showed a young woman with physical features remarkably similar to her own, the same eye color, face shape, even a small scar on her forehead that Chloe also had. "Dr. Reed," Victoria said worriedly, "could Chloe be having visions of her biological mother? It's possible. Children with special neurological abilities sometimes maintain subconscious emotional connections with close relatives, even when separated. The possibility that Chloe might have a living mother somewhere created a new emotional complexity for everyone. But this time, instead of fear, there was curiosity and hope. Sarah, who had become an ally to the family, offered to discreetly investigate if there were any records of Chloe's relatives besides Martin. "If she has other family members, especially a mother, would you want to know?" she asked. Arthur and Victoria looked at each other. The decision would be difficult. Seeking answers about Chloe's past could bring both healing and new complications. "We want what's best for Chloe," Victoria finally decided. "If she has a family that truly loves her somewhere, she deserves to know. But if we find out there's no one, or that other people abandoned her, we don't want her to suffer more," Arthur added. Dr. Reed made a wise suggestion. "Why don't we ask Chloe herself what she wants?" When asked if she would like to know about other relatives, Chloe gave an answer that demonstrated a surprising wisdom for her 4 years. "I want to know if there's someone who was looking for me and was sad when they couldn't find me," she said. "But I don't want to leave my new family. You chose me when I was broken, and now I'm fixed." The childish metaphor of being broken and then fixed deeply touched all the adults present. Sarah discreetly began her search for information, and 3 days later she returned with discoveries that would once again change the understanding of Chloe's story. "I found birth records that show Chloe has a living biological mother," she announced. "And there's something else. She has been looking for her daughter for 2 years." The revelation brought a mix of emotions. Joy that Chloe had a mother who loved her, but also fear that it might mean losing her. "Where is she?" Chloe asked, her eyes shining with cautious hope. "In Bridgewater. And there's something interesting. She volunteers at shelters, looking for lost children. It seems she never stopped looking for you." At that moment, A new journey was about to begin, one that would test the bonds that had formed and would forever define what truly constituted a family. Chapter 10. The news about Chloe's biological mother created an atmosphere of tense expectation in the family's new home. For 3 days, Arthur and Victoria debated how to proceed, while Chloe alternated between moments of childish curiosity about her mother and episodes of anxiety about the possibility of having to leave her new family. "Uncle Arthur," she asked one morning while playing with Isabel, "if my real mom wants me back, are you going to give me to her?" The question broke Arthur's heart. "Chloe, you are our family now. Nothing will change that. But if your biological mother truly loves you, maybe it's important for you to meet. What if she doesn't like me? What if she thinks I've become too different?" Victoria hugged Chloe affectionately. "My dear, any mother would be proud to have a brave and loving daughter like you." That same day, Sarah returned with more information about Marina Scott, Chloe's biological mother. She's 26, works as a nursing assistant, and spends her weekends visiting shelters and hospitals looking for her daughter. According to the records, Chloe disappeared 2 years ago when she was under the temporary care of a neighbor. "And why didn't she contact the authorities?" Mr. Peterson asked. "She did, but without success. Marina has a history of financial problems and was considered unstable by the system. Her reports about her daughter's disappearance were filed as voluntary abandonment." The injustice of the situation enraged Arthur. A mother who truly loved her daughter had been ignored by the system, while Martin, who had clearly rejected her, almost gained custody to exploit her. "Doctor," Reed suggested a carefully structured meeting. "We can arrange a first contact in a neutral environment with psychological supervision. This will allow us to assess the dynamic between mother and daughter without pressure." Chloe, when consulted about the meeting, gave a response that showed her exceptional emotional maturity. "I want to see if she has sad eyes like I did before I met you. If she does, maybe I can make her happy like you did for me." The meeting was scheduled at the hospital in Dr. Reed's office. Marina arrived an hour early, nervous and clearly emotional. When Sarah brought her to the waiting room, the physical resemblance to Chloe was undeniable. "She's grown so much," Marina murmured, looking at a recent photo of Chloe that Sarah had shown her. 2 lost years. 2 years she needed me and I couldn't find her. When Chloe entered the office accompanied by Victoria, the moment was electric. Mother and daughter observed each in silence for long seconds, both processing the other's presence. "Mommy?" Chloe asked shyly. "My baby," Marina replied, tears streaming down her face. "My little Chloe, Mommy looked for you every day." Chloe approached cautiously, like a wounded animal testing if it was safe to trust again. "Why didn't you find me sooner? Because people didn't believe me when I said you were missing. They said I had abandoned you, but that was never true." The meeting lasted 2 hours, supervised by Dr. Reed, who carefully observed the interactions. Marina told Chloe about the 2 years of desperate searching, visiting every shelter, every hospital, every place a lost child might be. "I worked during the day and looked for you at night," Marina explained. "I never stopped believing I would find you." Chloe, in turn, told her about her life on the streets, about Mrs. Gable, about meeting Arthur and Isabel, and about her new family. She spoke with special affection about how she had learned to care for Isabel and how it made her feel important. "Mommy," Chloe said after telling her about Isabel's healing, "I can make sick babies better. The doctor said it's special." Marina listened to everything with fascination and pride. "You were always special, my daughter. Since you were tiny, you took care of the abandoned kittens I brought home." It was during this conversation that Marina made a surprising revelation. "Chloe, I need to tell you something important. You have a little brother." Chloe's eyes widened. A little brother? His name is Gabriel. He's 1.5. He was born after you disappeared. I was pregnant when I lost you, and I promised him I would find his big sister. The news that she had a brother brought a new emotional dimension for Chloe. She had always shown protective instincts with younger children, and the idea of having a blood brother excited and scared her at the same time. "Does he know he has a sister?" she asked. "Gabriel says your name every day. I show him your picture and tell him stories about the brave sister who would one day come home." Arthur and Victoria watched the interaction with conflicting feelings. It was impossible not to see the genuine love between Marina and Chloe, but it was also painful to imagine losing the girl who had become the center of their lives. Dr. Reed intervened with a careful suggestion. "Perhaps we can start with gradual visits. Chloe can meet Gabriel and spend time with Marina, while maintaining her stability with the Harrison family. But where are Marina and Gabriel living?" Victoria asked, concerned about their conditions. Marina looked down, ashamed. "We're in a shelter in Bridgewater. I couldn't keep my own apartment after I lost my job looking for Chloe." The revelation created an uncomfortable silence. It was clear that Marina loved her children, but lacked the financial means to care for them properly. Arthur, surprising everyone, made an unexpected proposal. "Marina, what if you and Gabriel came to live here in Oak Creek? I can help you find a job, and the children can grow up together." "Mr. Harrison, I can't accept charity," Marina began. "It's not charity," he interrupted. "It's family taking care of family. Chloe found a sister in Isabel. Now she can have a blood brother too. And Victoria can have the support of another mother who understands the challenges of raising special children." The proposal was generous, but also complex. It would mean uniting two families that had formed under extraordinary circumstances. Chloe, hearing the whole discussion, asked a question that deeply touched everyone present. "Uncle Arthur, if Gabriel comes to live with us, will you be like his daddy too? And will Aunt Victoria be like Mommy Marina's aunt?" The innocence of the question highlighted Chloe's ability to see family as something built on love, not just blood. Marina looked at Arthur and Victoria with gratitude and disbelief. "You would do that after everything you've already done for Chloe?" "Marina," Victoria said, "Chloe taught us that family is about taking care of each other. If you're important to her, then you're important to us." That afternoon, it was decided that Marina and Gabriel would come to Oak Creek the following week. Arthur would rent a larger house where everyone could live comfortably, and Marina would start working at the clinic where Dr. Reed conducted her research. But as the plans developed, a concern grew in everyone's mind. What would the dynamic be between 5 people who barely knew each other, trying to form an unconventional family? Chloe, with her special neurological ability, sensed everyone's emotional tensions. On the last night before Marina and Gabriel's arrival, she had an episode different from all the previous ones. "I see mixed colors," she told Victoria. "Everyone is scared and happy at the same time. It's confusing." "It's normal to be confused when so many things are changing," Victoria replied. "But sometimes the confusing things become the most beautiful. Like when you mix paints and get a new color you didn't know existed," Chloe asked. "Exactly like that." That night, while everyone slept, Chloe got up and drew something that summarized her feelings. A large house with many windows, where several people holding hands were smiling, with a huge rainbow in the sky. In the drawing, all the people had different colors, but together they formed something beautiful and harmonious. It was her vision of what the new family could be, if everyone could overcome their fears and embrace the possibility of multiplied love instead of divided. Chapter 11. The arrival of Marina and Gabriel at the new house in Oak Creek was a moment fraught with contradictory emotions. Arthur had rented a spacious residence with 5 bedrooms, a large garden, and a play area, trying to create an environment where everyone could gradually adapt to the new family dynamic. Chloe had been waiting on the porch since dawn, alternating between excitement and nervousness. When Sarah's car finally pulled up in front of the house, she ran to hide behind Victoria. Gabriel was the first big surprise. At 1.5, he was a vibrant child who was immediately interested in everything around him, especially Isabel, who was in her stroller next to Victoria. "Baby!" Gabriel exclaimed, pointing at Isabel with joy. Marina, carrying 2 bags with all their belongings, looked at the house with a mix of gratitude and discomfort. "Mr. Harrison, this is too much. I'll never be able to repay such generosity." "Marina, you are repaying it by giving Chloe the chance to know her real family," Arthur replied. "That is priceless." The first few days were an emotional roller coaster. Gabriel adapted quickly, playing with Isabel as if they were old friends. But the relationship between Chloe and Gabriel was more complex. "He's so little," Chloe observed, watching her brother play. "How am I going to teach him things?" "The same way you taught things to Isabel," Marina replied affectionately, "with patience and love." But the real tension was between Marina and Victoria. 2 women who loved the same child, trying to define their roles without stepping on each other's feelings. The first crisis occurred on the 3rd night. Chloe woke up from a nightmare and by instinct ran to Victoria's room for comfort. Marina, hearing the movement, also came out of her room. "Chloe, what happened, sweetie?" Marina asked, holding out her arms. Chloe hesitated in the hallway, looking between Marina and Victoria, clearly confused about who to run to. The situation broke both women's hearts. "I had a bad dream," Chloe said, her voice small and insecure. "I dreamed you 2 were fighting over me and I had to choose." Dr. Reed, who was making regular visits to monitor the family's adjustment, intervened the next day with a family therapy session. "It's natural for there to be adjustment conflicts," she explained. "You are creating a family structure that has no precedent in any of your experiences. But how do we keep Chloe from feeling torn?" Victoria asked, clearly distressed. Marina responded in a way that surprised everyone. "Maybe the question isn't how to prevent her from feeling torn, but how to show her that she can love and be loved by more people without it being a problem." Dr. Reed smiled. "Marina is right. Love is not a finite resource. Chloe can have multiple mother figures, each offering something unique." Gradually, a new dynamic began to establish itself. Marina took on the role of the biological mother, telling stories about Chloe's early years and teaching her about her origins. Victoria maintained her role as the adoptive mother, continuing to handle Chloe's medical and educational needs. Arthur became a father figure to all the children, something that moved him deeply. "I never imagined I'd have 3 children at 52, he commented to Mr. Peterson during a visit. "And how do you feel about that?" the lawyer asked. "Like I finally understand what my purpose in life was," Arthur replied with a genuine smile. But the biggest transformation happened when Chloe began to demonstrate her special abilities with Gabriel. One afternoon, when the boy was crying inconsolably with a fever, Chloe approached him and gently placed her hands on his forehead. "His tummy hurts," she told Marina. "It's not the fever, it's yesterday's food that didn't sit well." Marina, initially skeptical, decided to follow Chloe's intuition and took Gabriel to the doctor. The diagnosis confirmed it: mild food poisoning causing abdominal discomfort. "How did she know?" Marina asked Dr. Reed. "Chloe's neurological abilities developed as a survival mechanism. She can detect physical and emotional signals that others don't notice. Now she's using it to care for her family." From that moment on, Marina began to see Chloe not just as her lost daughter, but as an extraordinary child who had developed unique skills during their years apart. A month after the move, something happened that tested the new family structure in an unexpected way. Chloe became seriously ill with pneumonia, a result of a weakened immune system caused by years of malnutrition and stress. During the 3 days she was hospitalized, The entire family gathered at the hospital. Marina never left her bedside. Victoria coordinated medical care. Arthur looked after Gabriel and Isabel, and they all took turns to ensure Chloe was never alone. "Grandpa Arthur," said Gabriel, using the nickname he had created for Arthur, "is Chloe going to be okay?" "Yes, she is," Arthur replied, picking the boy up. "Your sister is the strongest person I know." During her recovery, something beautiful happened. Isabel, now 8 months old and completely healed, began to cry whenever they moved away from Chloe's room, as if she sensed that her healer needed her now. "It's incredible," Dr. Shepard observed. "Isabel has developed a neurological bond with Chloe. She's trying to repay the care she received." When Chloe finally returned home, the family had solidified in a way none of them had expected. They were no longer two families trying to merge, but a single family with complex but functional dynamics. The first major celebration came when Marina received her first promotion at the clinic, moving from assistant to nursing technician. "It's the first time in years I feel like I'm building something instead of just surviving," she commented during dinner. Chloe, observing Marina's happiness, had one of her neurological observations. "Mommy Marina, your color has changed. It used to be kind of gray, and now it's golden like Aunt Victoria's." Chloe's ability to see people's emotions as colors had become a source of joy rather than worry. She used this skill to detect when someone needed extra affection or when there were tensions that needed to be resolved. "Grandpa Arthur has a purple color today," she announced one afternoon. "That means he's worried about money." Arthur laughed, impressed by the accuracy of the observation. "How do you always know, little one?" "Because you frown just like Uncle Roger used to, but your color is different. You worry because you want to take good care of us. He worried because he wanted things only for himself." This ability to distinguish between genuine and selfish motivations made Chloe a kind of intention detector for the family, subtly warning them about people who might not have good intentions. 6 months after the new family was formed, they faced their first social test when they were invited to a child's birthday party at a neighbor's house. "Daddy?" Chloe asked. She had started calling Arthur Daddy and Marina, Mommy, affectionately using Aunt Victoria. "How do I explain to the other kids that I have 2 mums and you're the dad of 3 kids who weren't born from your tummy?" The question made everyone laugh, but it also brought an important reflection on how to explain their unconventional family to the outside world. "You explain that family is about love, not about how people came to each other," Victoria replied. "And if they don't understand, then they haven't learned what you already know about what really matters," said Marina. At the party, Chloe surprised everyone by introducing her family with pride and naturalness. "This is my mommy Marina, my aunt Mommy Victoria, my daddy Arthur, my sister Isabel, and my brother Gabriel. We chose each other to be a family." The simplicity and joy with which she described her family situation immediately won over all the other children and even the adults present, who realized they were witnessing something special, a family built entirely on love and mutual choice. That night, as they put the 3 children to bed, Arthur watched Marina and Victoria working together harmoniously and realized they had created something unique. A family that worked not despite its complexity, but because of it. Each person brought something special to the whole, and together they had created an environment where 3 special children could flourish in ways that would never have been possible in traditional family structures. Chapter 12. A year after the encounter on the road that changed all their lives, Arthur found himself on the porch of the house, observing a scene that moved him deeply. Chloe, now 5 years old and visibly healthier and more confident, was teaching Gabriel how to care for a flower garden she had planted, specifically to make natural medicine for anyone who got sick. "Grandpa Gabriel, This little flower helps with tummy aches, she explained seriously, and this one makes people less sad. Gabriel, now almost 3, listened attentively to his older sister, clearly fascinated by everything she said. Isabel, at 1 year and 3 months, crawled through the garden between them, completely healthy and developing beyond all medical expectations. Chloe's transformation over the past year had been extraordinary. Her special neurological abilities had stabilized under the guidance of Dr. Reed, who continued to visit regularly to monitor her development. More importantly, she had learned to control her abilities instead of being controlled by them. Dr. Reed, Chloe said during one of their sessions, "Now I know when people are sad and I can help, but I don't get sad with them like before. That means you've learned to create healthy emotional boundaries," the doctor explained. "It's a very important skill." Marina had completely settled into her new life. Promoted again at the clinic, she now supervised a team of nursing technicians and had become a recognized expert in pediatric care. Her relationship with Victoria had evolved from initial tension to a genuine co-parenting partnership. "I never imagined I could share my daughter with someone and feel more complete, not less," Marina confessed to Dr. Reed during one of the family sessions. Victoria, for her part, had discovered a calling she never knew she had. She had started volunteering at children's shelters, using her experience with Chloe to identify children with special needs who might be being neglected. "Chloe taught me to see what really matters," she told Arthur one night. "Now I want to help other children who are lost like she was." Arthur, whose hair had turned completely white in the last year, never regretted his choices. Harrison Mining had fully recovered from Roger's actions and was more prosperous than ever. More importantly, he discovered that business success meant very little compared to the joy of watching 3 children grow up in safety and love. "Mr. Peterson," he said during a business meeting, "I want to establish a foundation for children in vulnerable situations." Chloe showed me how many extraordinary children might be lost on the streets without anyone noticing. The first major celebration of the expanded family came with Chloe's 5th birthday. She had specifically requested that the party be at the hospital where she met her new family, because she wanted to thank the doctors and nurses who took care of us when we were broken. Dr. Shepard and the entire hospital staff attended the celebration, moved to see how the 3 children they had cared for were flourishing. Claire, the head nurse, could barely hold back tears as she watched Chloe distribute hugs and flowers to everyone. "This girl transformed not only her family, but our entire team," she commented. "She reminded us why we chose to work with children." During the party, Chloe did something no one expected. She stood up before all the guests and asked to speak. "I want to thank everyone who took care of me when I was little and scared," she said in her clear voice. "Especially Uncle Arthur, who could have driven right by when he saw me on the road, but stopped to see if I was okay." Arthur felt tears stream down his face. "Chloe, you saved my granddaughter first. I just returned the favor." "No, Daddy," she corrected with a wise smile. "We saved each other, like a family does." The celebration was interrupted by a discovery that surprised everyone. Dr. Reed had received results from longitudinal studies on Chloe's neurological development and brought extraordinary news. "Chloe is not just an isolated case," she announced to the family. "We found evidence that there are other children with similar neurological abilities, usually developed in response to trauma and the need for survival." "And what does that mean?" Marina asked. "It means we can use what we've learned from Chloe to help other children who may have unrecognized special abilities. She could be the first of many children we can properly help." Chloe listened to the whole explanation with interest. "Dr. Reed, does that mean I can help other kids like me?" "If you want to, when you're older, yes." "I want to," she said decisively, "but only if my family can come too. I learned that we're stronger when we're together. 6 months after Chloe's birthday, News arrived that definitively closed the circle of justice that had begun with Roger's betrayal. Arthur's former partner was sentenced to 8 years in prison for money laundering, corporate fraud, and attempted poisoning. More importantly, all the embezzled funds were recovered, and the total amount was even greater than what Arthur had lost. "What are you going to do with this extra money?" Mr. Peterson asked. "Establish the Chloe Foundation," Arthur replied without hesitation, "for lost children who need to be found." The foundation was officially launched on the 2nd anniversary of their meeting on the road. Chloe, now 6, cut the inaugural ribbon alongside Arthur, Marina, Victoria, Gabriel, and Isabel. "Daddy," she said as she cut the ribbon, "when I grow up, I want to work here to help kids like I used to be, and we'll be here to support you," Arthur promised. The first family served by the foundation was a situation that strikingly mirrored Chloe's story. A 5-year-old girl found on the streets of Bridgewater, apparently abandoned, but demonstrating special abilities to calm other children in traumatic situations. Chloe insisted on meeting the girl, and when they finally met, the connection was immediate. "She has the golden color, just like I did when I found you," Chloe observed. "That means she has a lot of love to give. She just needs a family to receive that love." The girl, named Sophie, was welcomed by a family carefully selected by the foundation, following all the protocols that had been developed from Chloe's experience. By the end of the Chloe Foundation's 2nd year of operation, they had helped 12 children with special needs find suitable families. Each case was unique, but they all followed the same fundamental principle that Chloe had taught. Family is about choice, love, and mutual care. On a December evening, 2.5 years after that fateful meeting on the road, the whole family gathered on the porch to watch the stars. Gabriel slept in Marina's lap, Isabel played quietly with her toys next to Victoria, and Chloe leaned against Arthur, counting the constellations she had learned in school. "Daddy," Chloe said suddenly, "do you remember when you asked me how I knew I could trust you that first time at the hospital?" "I do. It was because your color was the same as the grandpa I used to dream of having, golden and warm, just like the color everyone in our family has now." Arthur hugged the daughter who had saved his granddaughter and in the process saved the soul of his entire family. "And do you know what color you are to me, Chloe?" "What?" "The color of a miracle. Because you transformed just existing into truly living." That night, as the stars shone over Oak Creek, an unconventional but deeply united family slept in peace, knowing they had found each other against all odds. And in the room that had once been just Chloe's, now decorated with drawings of the whole family, a new drawing adorned the wall, a road where a car stopped to help a little girl. But this time, the road continued infinitely, suggesting that the journey of love and care that had begun that day would never truly end. Chloe had learned that family is not about blood or social conventions. It's about people who choose to stay together in hard times, who take care of each other, and who grow together, transforming pain into love and loneliness into belonging. It was a lesson she would carry forever, and one she would continue to teach to other children who, just like her, only needed someone to stop and see them, truly see them, and decide they were worth saving. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment what you thought of my story with a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you so much.